How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and today we're going to be doing another 2020 NFL offseason preview. This time it'll be covering the Los Angeles Chargers. So for those that don't know, the Los Angeles Chargers will be picking 6th overall in the 2020 NFL Draft, but we have a lot to cover when it comes to structuring the team for next year, including the total cap space they have now, notable free agents, potential roster moves, like the new cap total after all the moves are made, and then like free agents they can target, and their first round pick in the draft, and what else they should look to address in the draft. So the Chargers, of course, very talented team in my opinion. It seems like I always pick them to go to the playoffs. Last year I did, totally didn't happen. The Chargers just seem to find new ways to lose on a weekly basis. They're like the greatest loser from last year. I don't know, man. It's weird. I'm hoping they turn things around for the franchise's sake. So let's just go ahead and get started. The total cap space right now via SPOTrack. And again, because I say this every video, it's based on SPOTrack. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at the site if it's not accurate. But I feel like they do a great job, which is why, you know, I've been using their website for a couple years now. But total cap space via SPOTrack, 51.7 million as of when I got this information, so last night. So the Chargers right now have 51.7 million. You're probably thinking, well, that's a good number, right? Wrong. They have a ton of key free agents. Let's go ahead and talk about those notable free agents right now. Number one being quarterback Philip Rivers. It's already been announced that the organization and Philip Rivers will part ways. It's probably for the best of both. More so the Chargers than Philip Rivers, but we'll say for the sake of the video, it's best for both sides. Running backs, Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. Melvin Gordon, of course, a former first rounder, and Austin Eckler undrafted, but the cool thing about him is he is a restricted free agent, so he'll be easier to bring back. Fullback Derek Watt, tight end Hunter Henry, inside linebacker Jatavius Brown, and free safety Adrian Phillips. All of these guys that I listed are either starters or play a significant role on the team. And in my opinion, I think they should bring back Austin Eckler and Hunter Henry. I think the other guys are replaceable, and it's weird to say Philip Rivers is replaceable, but at this age, the way he played last year, he most certainly is. So let's go ahead and get started with some potential roster cuts and roster moves in general. This is always a fun one to talk about. So the first move that we have is left tackle Russell Okung getting released. That move will save roughly $13 million. That just seems like the biggest no-brainer for the Chargers, and one of the biggest no-brainer cuts in the league, because, yeah, Russell Okung is a decent level starter at this stage of his career, but he's not worth a $13 million cap hit. But we've seen teams do this before, where they cut players and then they restructure the contract. I can see the Chargers doing something like that, because one of their biggest needs is offensive linemen, and we have them cutting an offensive lineman, so it kind of just doesn't make sense. But for like building the team and structuring contracts and stuff, it makes a ton of sense. Just release them, restructure the deal, move on. Another potential roster cut that we're looking at is outside linebacker Thomas Davis. If you release Thomas Davis, you save $5.25 million. This one's more optional. I know Thomas Davis has expressed how he wants to continue to play football, and he very well could. I just don't know if it'll be for the Chargers. This move will save them a good chunk of money, and believe me, they're going to need it. And in my opinion, Thomas Davis, yes, he's a good veteran, well respected. I'm a fan of him in his game. Obviously, former Georgia Bulldog. That's my dude right there. But I think you got to move on. He's a 37-year-old linebacker. Like, he's the Terrence Newman of linebackers, people. Remember Terrence Newman just kept playing until he was damn near 40? Like, yeah, Thomas Davis, you're good. You're very good and all. It's time to hang it up. Okay, just take the one-day contract with the Carolina Panthers and call it a day. Now I'm just playing, man. If you feel like you can still play at a high level, then by all means, do it. You know, just joking. Defensive tackle Brandon Mebane is the next cut. You can save roughly $4.25 million. Listen, if you want a nose tackle, you can either get a way better option for a little bit more money, or a much cheaper option that might be able to do the same thing Brandon Meebane's doing. So that is the way I look at it. You can save a good chunk of change by getting rid of Brandon Meebane, and then the final cut is going to be tight end Virgil Green, who saves $2.7 million by making that move. Virgil Green spent a good portion of the year injured. He really was a non-factor out there when he played anyway for the past couple of seasons. So just cut him. Just save the $2.7 million. You know, go draft a tight end or something. You know, like, come on. Is it really necessary? Virgil Green's not all that good. So there we go. We got through the cuts, but however, there's a trade. Yeah, we're making a trade, boys and girls. So what we're doing, this is going to be pretty controversial. We are trading for Cam Newton. That's right. We are going to be trading a 2020 third-round pick and a 2021 fourth-round pick for quarterback Cam Newton, who, of course, is on a one-year deal with a $21.1 million cap hit, $2 million dead cap hit, which means, for some bizarre reason, if you trade for him and decide to cut him, you save $19.1 million. So I guess we'll go ahead and talk about why I have this happening, why it makes sense for both sides, I guess. So from Carolina's point of view, you're getting rid of $19 million, okay? This is a team that has entered rebuilding mode. It just doesn't make sense to keep Cam Newton on the team. Sure, he's good, but he's kind of an unknown right now because of the injuries that he's had recently in his career. And also, you know, like I said, the team's rebuilding. I don't think he fits the timeline anymore. So go to a team where you fit the timeline, at least for the immediate future. For the Chargers, he's going to bridge the gap between the Phillip Rivers era and the heir apparent of Phillip Rivers, which will be a quarterback that we draft, who we'll talk about later. So Cam Newton's going to come in here with a $21.1 million cap hit. If you factor in all the moves we just made, this is how much money the Chargers will have as they enter free agency. It is going to be $55.8 million. Yes, I did all the math. So technically, the Los Angeles Chargers, after all the moves they made, all of the cuts they made, making that trade for Cam Newton, they gain $4.1 million. So you kill two birds with one stone right there. You have quarterback as a need, not anymore, because we just sent you Cam Newton. And you clear up a bunch of cap space, and you're still going to go into free agency with a huge chunk of cap space at almost $56 million. Now, if you didn't trade for Cam Newton, you'd have like $77 million. Or $76.9 million if you want exact numbers, which is very good, of course, and you probably rather would want to have that. But again, the Cam Newton salary will be off the books next offseason. And again, the whole purpose of this trade is to help bridge a gap between the Phillip Rivers era and the heir apparent of Phillip Rivers. And not only that, you're going to gain a compensatory pick next year when Cam Newton walks. You'll get like a third-round pick. So the pick that you trade, so essentially the trade is Cam Newton for a fourth-round pick in 2021. You're going to gain a third-round pick, you know, for compensatory because you'll lose Cam Newton next year. So hopefully it makes sense. You essentially traded Cam Newton for a fourth-round pick. I hope it makes sense. Now, potential free agent targets. Let's start off with the first two. Running back Austin Eckler and tight end Hunter Henry. Just stay in-house for these first two. Eckler makes the most sense. He's a restricted free agent. Obviously knows the offense. A huge part of the offense, especially in the receiving game. And he's probably not going to cost as much. If anything, he'll warrant a Tevin Coleman, Mark Ingram type of contract. So like $5 million a year. Which ain't bad. I think Austin Eckler has more than earned, you know, getting a second contract for what he's done for the team. As for Melvin Gordon, well, see you later. No offense. And then, of course, Hunter Henry. It's been rumored that he could be franchise tagged, which, you know, sure, I could see that happening. I mean, he's a really good tight end when healthy. The problem is he's not healthy at all. So when he is out there and doing his thing, he's actually pretty damn good. So I guess franchise tagging would essentially be the Chargers saying, okay, you're on a 1-year prove-it deal. Show us what you got. So it would be interesting to see if that is the case. Now for real, like, free agents outside of their team, they should target offensive tackle Jack Conklin. So I feel like for a lot of teams, you're going to see this name pop up a lot. Jack Conklin. He's a 25 or 26-year-old right tackle. And, you know, he's young. You can offer him a pretty good sized contract as well, because you're going to have money to play with. You may not have the most money to play with, but again, because you're because you're a talented team, you're not a bad team. Because you're a talented team who desperately needs offensive line, you could probably afford to overpay for Jack Conklin. But you definitely need a right tackle. And if we are going with the scenario that you are going to release Russell Okung and renegotiate a cheaper deal, then you got your tackle positions figured out, at least for next season or the upcoming season, however you want to look at it. But you'll need a left tackle soon. So at least it'll help immediately and for the future, because Jack Conklin is a right tackle, plays the right tackle position pretty well. The next free agent that we got, potential free agent target, defensive tackle / defensive end, Ndamukong Suh. He's going to be the Brandon Mebane replacement. He's a better player who will cost a little bit more, but I'd rather pay a little bit more to get a great proven player like Ndamukong Suh, who, yes, he may not be the same player he was like a few years ago, but he's still really good. You know, I'd much rather pay a little bit more to get Ndamukong Suh than pay the, you know, money that you're currently paying Brandon Mebane. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. Ndamukong Suh's a much better player, and like I said, he'll only be a little bit more. You might as well cut Brandon Mebane and bring him in. And finally, for the last free agent, middle linebacker, or as I'll have listed, inside linebacker, Danny Trevathan. Danny Trevathan is just a really good football player at that inside linebacker position. And if you actually look at the Chargers, in my opinion, they have a very talented middle linebacker room, or just a linebacker room in general. By adding a Danny Trevathan, fills in a couple of needs. Number one, you're adding a veteran player and a proven player that's played on a championship team. And then number two, of course, you're getting a better pass coverage guy and a mentor above everything else, especially for this team that has a lot of youth at the linebacker position. You look at some of the guys on their roster. They have Drew Tranquill, who came from Notre Dame, started to pick up his game throughout the year. You look at a nice, young, unproven player like Kazir White, kind of an unknown in the NFL, but a decent player. Good coverage ability, solid at least. Then you look at Denzel Perryman, of course, who was drafted by Miami, or drafted from Miami, I should say, a few years ago. You know, he's still got something in him, still young. And then now you're adding Danny Trevathan to that mix in the middle linebacker room. Like, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. And also you have Nwosu, who's kind of a speed rusher, hybrid linebacker. So your linebacker room is pretty talented. You have a lot of different guys that can do a lot of different things, but you'll have that veteran guy in Trevathan and a better coverage guy in Trevathan. Alright, so my first round pick for the LA Chargers, I had it being Justin Herbert. Now, I'm not the biggest Justin Herbert fan, but I get why people like him. He does have the physical makings to be a good franchise quarterback. I guess my thing is I need to see him do all of the things that quarterbacks typically do on a consistent basis. Like, I got to see if he can hit the throws consistently. Is he the type of guy that can get out of the pocket and make a play? Is he an underrated athlete? You know, a guy that people will kind of underestimate, that'll bite you in the ass and, like, make plays. I need to see what Justin Herbert can do. Like, I've seen a little bit of his film against stiffer competition. He doesn't look too bad, especially the last 2 games of the season. But for me, I got to see what this guy can do. You know, I need to see how consistent he can be. And I think that's a huge thing. I mean, you're coming to the Chargers. You're going to be in a good environment. A team that just needs to bolster the offensive line. And again, we'll go back to the Cam Newton thing. The reason we have Cam Newton coming here is to bridge the gap between Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert. He's going to play for a year. He can get beat up again behind this line. Well, I hope not, because he's coming off a shoulder injury and a little ankle issue. But you know, Cam gets to come here and kind of be a mentor. He can be a mentor for Justin Herbert. You know, Herbert has the size, you know, maybe not as built as Cam, but he has the size of Cam Newton. And Herbert's got a good arm on him as well. He does have some arm talent for sure. But, of course, they're two different players. But in terms of, like, physically, there is some similarity there. Herbert's about the same size, but not as physically built as Cam Newton, if that makes sense. So Cam just comes in here, it helps for now, and Herbert's your future guy, basically. Other positions you could look to address during the draft, definitely offensive line. You got to keep your quarterback upright. Look to, you know, get a center for the future because, you know, Mike Pouncey's not going to play forever, so look to add another center, potentially. Defensive back depth. We did not address losing Adrian Phillips, so maybe look to the draft to add like a nice little third rounder. Running back depth. There's going to be some good backs in this class. They probably won't be able to get a couple of them, but maybe they'll be able to. I don't know. Maybe they'll get a guy like a Jonathan Taylor if he slips into the second round. Like, that wouldn't be a bad draft pick. Maybe they go after P. Ryan from Florida, who's starting to climb up some boards a little bit. Like, there's a lot of possibilities for the Chargers to add another running back, so that way they don't have to technically pay for two running backs. Then you look at some linebacker depth. Maybe you just bring in another guy. Like, their linebacker room's good. They just kind of lack that star power. But they can probably bring in another guy with a unique skill set, see what they got, maybe bring out the best in all of the competition in the linebacking room. And then finally, wide receiver depth. I mean, they got Keenan Allen, they got Mike Williams, but they need that third receiver. Travis Benjamin, not really a big fan of him. You know, like, he's a fine player, but, you know, he has a lot of drops. He tends to fumble a little bit on special teams and, you know, just not the greatest route runner. Like, he's got speed, but, you know, everyone thinks that you just got to be fast. You have to have skill as well. I don't care how fast you can run as a receiver. You got to have some skill. You know, like, I don't want to rant necessarily, but basically what I'm trying to say is it's one thing to have the reputation of being a fast player. It's another thing to have the skill to complement your speed. Like, you see a lot of players who are fast, but they don't have the skill set to complement it, you know. So I hope if the Chargers do go with another speedy receiver, he will have the skill set to complement it, unlike Travis Benjamin. So those are basically all the things that we're going to be doing here in the video for the Los Angeles Chargers. There's your 2020 offseason for the Chargers. Let me know down below what you guys think. And the next one that we will be doing, I think, is going to be the Carolina Panthers. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and peace out.